Welcome, everybody, to this first transmission of 2025. I'm just making this in the last few days of 2024. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who's supported this channel, supported these transmissions in just liking and subscribing. I just want to wish you all a happy festive season. And if this is not the festive season in your tradition, please carry that over for when it is for you. And yeah, I'm going to be changing the format over the coming months. I've kept it the same for now, but I'm going to be keeping things kind of succinct, I think, in the main transmission. So I'm just getting myself comfortable. As you may or may not know, we have a school. So whilst astrology is one of the main branches of my life's work, it's not the only thing that we do. And I keep wanting to expand out to make more transmissions, things like that. And I think for the first few months of 2025, what I'll be doing is doing a little bit of kind of divination, looking at what I call soup of the week or soup of the month, where we can see these collective themes coming up. And in many ways, the non-dual astrology work that I do is a scientific way of doing that by looking at the celestial bodies. But also I find that we also bring a lot of information through. So there are going to be a few more channeled insights that I may offer for the first few months just to see how that goes. And then I'll be offering a kind of synopsis of what's coming up for the month, in some ways copied and pasted from my more substantial 2025 transmission, because as I say, I don't have all the time in the world to make this channel. We have a school to support, many things. And I think I'm going to move on very soon to the next bit. But what I want to talk about a lot in this transmission is just this fact that people feel so low energy at the moment. We're working through a lot on a very deep level. And therefore, especially if it's winter where you are, there's a need to conserve time and energy. And that's okay. It's all leading to something very amazing. And in my transmission for 2025, I go a lot more deeply into the synthesis around that evolutionary journey. I think that sometimes that gets lost in just a monthly transmission, because, for instance, if you listen one month and you don't listen for a few months, you may not see the linked up thinking. So if you'd like to see the more deep linked up thinking for the year, I really do encourage you to either order our transmission, which is around 90 minutes long. I'm just in the process of finalizing that. And then what I really want to do is there's also an option to come to an interactive tutorial so that you can ask questions. Because what normally happens, I often give the transmission live on Zoom. And I think there's so much information that people don't know what to say after. So we're going to actually give almost a month. People can sign up to get the transmission whenever they want. It will be released on the 5th of January. And then we've got almost a month, I think it's the 1st of February, that we then do our interactive weaving. And I believe that we'll be able to do something a lot more fertile for each person's growth, because you'll be able to check you understand something or tune in about things. You can ask questions. You can also ask for more embellishment where it's possible on certain things. So I just really wanted to let you know that that's around, because I'm not doing that in this particular transmission. This is just for January, okay? And you probably all have got a bit of an idea by now what non-dual astrology is. I do have an extra video that's on the YouTube about this. But for me, it's a very important triangulation that's really needed at this time. I think that we're working to become less dual as people. And when we work with non-dual astrology, so duality is where we create a lot of problems, where we believe there is one singular truth. We feel opposed to anything that doesn't verify or land with our truth. And I think that part of our collective evolution is actually that we are becoming able to at least think about the fact that we might have simultaneous truths abiding together. And of course, when we look at astrology, it's all around karma and the positioning of the planets. And each person has unique astrology as to where the planets were placed at their time of birth. And so how things evolve for them, what their karma is. And therefore, when we work with three systems together, we find these sweet spots in between that you might miss when just looking at another system. Of course, when I'm doing something like a monthly forecast, it's still generalized because the problem is that I'm not doing a reading for a particular one of you. So I'm just talking about trends and things that you might be experiencing and might be on the collective journey. But at least there's a form of accuracy because for me, my little inner geek loves seeing how these things line up through these different systems. And it creates a very wealthy tapestry for us. And I believe it is, it's like an abundant nature to have these three systems to play with and to dance with. So yeah, I hope you enjoy. Finally, I just want to, before we get right into the transmissions, and I don't know if you can see my funny little screens sometimes because I do this on Zoom. I sometimes have these little bars that come up. So I apologize for that if you've got those. I'm never sure what people say and what they don't say. Okay. So I mentioned we've got our transmission available. I'm also starting to do readings for people. I've got readings lined up for people for early January, but if you would be interested in deep mentoring where I work with your astrology, you receive teachings aligned to your specific journey, I'm really looking. I have a lot of students now that we're training up who we really want to take over in many things. And I really want to work with more advanced students and to help people get on their way. This is why our school is called Dharma Stars. It's because we really want to help people find their Dharma. I think at the moment, we're all in a bit of a kind of confusion. I know so many of us go through these moments of not feeling passionate about anything. And this is something we'll be talking about very shortly. This serves an amazing purpose for us. But yeah, sometimes we need some guidance, and it's good to have somebody who can look at your astrology, who may have teachings to provide, who can help you with trauma. Trauma is, a lot of people are really clearing very deep residues that are sitting within their systems right now. So yeah, I offer very deep, holistic packages from 3 sessions to a year long to whatever. And yeah, I'm really interested in taking some people on if this is calling to you. We're also going to be doing some little baby affordable courses that have tools to help you regulate in these times, because I think that the first few months of this year for people are going to be bringing up a lot of stuff. So we're in service of that. And a lot of people are too overwhelmed to process information. This is something we're finding. And therefore, they can't go to the deeper level with us because they need to work on their basic core traumas first. And a lot of this you can do with basic tools to at least get in the door to be ready to do something where you might need to be able to process information. So we're going to be providing some materials in around February to help people on that. And we also have, something that I think is going to be a really big opportunity for people to take part in is on the 17th of January. We're going to be having a sacral chakra journey. This is part of our very successful Serpents of Transformation system, where we fuse teachings on DNA, on chakras, Indian system chakras at this point, multidimensional principles, pranayama, and yoga, and many more things in a kind of trauma-informed way, where we also do clearings and sharings, and it's a real-time immersion. But we're also doing this right as Venus and Saturn conjunct. And as I'll be saying later, this is something that some of you may have heard me talking about quite a lot. I don't want to give it all away just yet, but yeah, there are codes that might be missed if you didn't see what's happening for the astrological bodies in different people's charts. And I've been noticing for several years interesting activity around this time in people's Venus. And when Venus Saturn conjunct in Kalachakra astrology, it's actually like an important remedying, especially of Venus's excesses or deficiencies. And a lot of people right now have like trauma Venus, and their value systems are not quite appropriate for taking them up a spiritual notch. And where the Venus Saturn conjunction is taking place in January, it's a very interesting place. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But we're also within the sacral journey that we're doing, we're going to have specially commissioned transmissions about this. So you can really understand, again, the deeper nuances of what I feel this year is to bring. I've also written about a lot of this in my book, Dakini Weaving, Keys to the Golden Age. And it's almost like in that book, the forecasts that I made kind of start around now, around 2025. So we got the book out to friends and family, students and loved ones. And they have been working with this as a study manual because it aligns with many of our courses. But we're going to be getting the book out, and the concepts within it, we're going to be getting behind those a lot more as the year progresses. So yeah, so if you're interested, my book's up on Amazon, and our whole team is around, available to help you, especially move through things in a good way. And that's why the Venus Saturn journey is really good and very well timed, because what we find is when we do these immersions, that what people are generally feeling paralyzed and confused about, actually, when you work in a team, you're working real time, and you're working with these sacred arts and sciences, actually, you just go very deep into it and you purge a lot very quickly. This is the secret of the ancients and the adepts, is how we use things like pranayama and yoga, and also how we apply it in this case with numerology and astrology, which have been given to me in some special way just at the beginning of COVID time. And it was something I knew was going to come through, but I really didn't know what was going to come through. And this system, because we're merging numerology, astrology, and these sacred arts and sciences, we are able to make a more potent journey of exponential growth, okay? And at this time, it's going to be really needed. So, and especially because the sacral chakra is the site of most of our wonky stuff. It's where our duality really kicks in. It's where addictions sit. It's where the potentiality to lapse into drama, shadow values, shadow serpent values, all of these things. And so it's a killer doing the sacral work. A lot of people find like it's so powerful when they do the work that I've done other chakra journeys where it's even just one day in sacral, and I've been like vomiting on this sacral day. And I'm often, when we do these practices, I'll be like crying or screaming, and lots of people get this because you're working through such ancient stuff. And again, this is really good if we do this for the collective also. So so we have lots lining up. I'm going to talk now quickly about the general astrology, and this term soup of the month. This is something that we're going to be exploring more in 2025. I'll do these deeper weavings with you to help you see some of these trends that are playing through for people. As you can probably feel, and I think this especially sometimes happens for women, because we don't have so much testosterone, people are really zonked out from the Mars retrograde, because Mars is retrograding in its sign of debilitation in Cancer in Vedic astrology. Jupiter is also retrograde. So any of these energies that are really for our divine spark, and Jupiter also represents our Dharma, our guru, our spiritual teachers. It's all kind of slow and weird, and it's also kind of bringing up a lot of old rage, feelings of the injustice, of inequality. And it's interesting, I was having a session with T'Challa, my astrology mentor, recently, and she was saying it's really not the time, even if we're feeling a lot of this repressed anger and rage, not to speak out too much about these things. And that's what I've been feeling. I feel almost capped. And I like that because I think I've been around the block enough times to know that getting on Facebook and ranting isn't really, going to help anything. And I think we're processing a lot. There is a lot of injustice. I think that this year is going to be very big for the theme of decolonization, but it's not time yet. And I'm feeling that, and Achala verified that also. And what I see is we have this tendency for people to generalize very important topics. Like we had hashtag Me Too or hashtag Black Lives Matter. And it becomes very easy to just hashtag something and think you're doing something rather than changing really painful programs and patterns that have been sitting in the collective. And I feel that we're now getting to a point of rightness. And also the absurdity of some inequalities that people have such blind spots about. But right now, people don't want to see it, okay? And so there can be the sense of feeling repressed. And I really encourage people not to go into victimhood about this, because this is what you need to look at where you still got victim wounds. And look at how you can transform this in this time with your Mars going retrograde, to think how can I, when it really is the time to step up about this, how can I step up and how can I speak on this? Because when we're wounded about something, things come out all wrong. And yeah, Facebook is not the place to go into those things, because that's just going to create duality. And anybody who knows what happens when you post on social media is you post on social media and then you're going to have to deal with a backlash of some people who agree and some people who don't disagree. So why don't you spend the time and that's all ungrounded. That's all like sacral chakra stuff. It's like going into the drama before the full picture is fully revealed, okay? So it's actually wasting creation energy. It's wasting sexual energy. And with so little power right now, it's really important we actually go within and use our power also to cultivate in the right way. And this is even more important because today I'm making this on the 26th of December. And if I'm correct, I think we've gone back into Purva Bhadrapada, or no, forward into Purva Bhadrapada, because we were just in Shatabishak with Saturn. And I'll be talking a lot about Purva Bhadrapada this year. Because this really typifies this collective journey out of wonky misuse of our sexual fire and the Kundalini, if you see it as that, into harnessing that for the right thing. So deciding to energy harvest all the time on social media is actually really poor use of one's energy. Okay. And there's also a lot with these repressed energies and these bits of old unprocessed wounds that's sitting around. There's also quite a lot of shadow behavior out there. I've been speaking to some team members recently because we were just a little bit, perplexed about some behaviors we saw recently. And I don't like to look at anything in the personal, but what I've seen is quite a lot of people just really being quite dishonorable. And I trust the perfection in this. And I don't want to go into what the dishonorable is, but certainly things that a spiritual practitioner really or client should know better about, okay? And that's basically what people have said. It's like, wow, this is like a child, not an elder, okay? And then there have been other people who've been wanting, services, and then not honoring their energy exchange for something where people have bent over backwards to give really high level work that would be very expensive, and not even offering an energy exchange. And these shadow behaviors that just ricochet back on the person who is being dishonorable, okay? And that's why it's just interesting to see these things. And I would really encourage you to notice where you're lapsing into shadow at the moment, because I think we're really all being encouraged to see that like, oh wow, this is not my most spiritual, altruistic, generous behavior. And I think people are becoming stingy, self-centered, dishonest, people asking for stuff, and wasting people's time a lot, and a lot of people in it just for personal gain and exposing that very early on. So yeah, it's very interesting because I was noticing this from early December, but actually what's interesting is Purva Bhadrapada has a real tendency to have this kind of good twin, naughty twin energy. And it's this forked path that we have all got in the spiritual journey of what, is it going to be, are you going to be trying to be an enchantress who's trying to manifest just for personal gain, or are you trying to be an altruistic yogi and trying to help to regain community, sacred nature, altruism? And I think that we're all going to be in an initiation around that in these coming months. But that's why if you know that you're in the initiation, then maybe it will help you to check yourself. And sometimes we also have no option but to just do the less honorable thing because we have a karmic teaching. But I'm seeing this, this step back into the mundane where, this is also being the influence of the eclipses, is that there's the mundane world and the spiritual world, and we're trying to find a balance with that. And people are in a massive confusion. And the massive confusion is also leading into the Saturn Rahu conjunction from late March for a couple of months. This is all serving a purpose. There's going to be a lot of rewirings of people's jobs, people's service, people's dharma. And right now, a lot of people just don't know. And then they may feel a lot of rage, anxiety, a lack of knowing. And I really encourage you to just be with the not knowing. I'll be talking a little bit about this in the Vedic astrology part, but this is where greatness comes from, is when we don't know. And I think people who are pushing too hard at the moment are just going to be trying to craft an identity that's going to be old news by the time all these shifts come in. So it's a really amazing opportunity and time to just slow down and go within. Mars doesn't want us to give up. It's not a disco holiday or whatever. It's not just a pamper day. There's a need to do work as well, but energy levels are lower, and it's going to help you to just show up to what you feel you can do. And there's a certain level of going through the motions with things. Like I love what I do, but if you ask me if I love what I do today, I would have a really apathetic answer. And that's a good thing. I think people feel, oh, there's something wrong with me. I don't know who I am anymore. The ideal spiritual outcome is to not know who you are, because that's not important. So don't try to grasp identity or cling to it when it's not clear. Just go turn up for the ride, be in the tantra of the moment, and because you can surrender better to change as it comes. So it can feel a bit strange right now, but it also is, you can find a degree of finding how to make it pleasant if you surrender to the fact that this is just letting you step into change. But change you cannot anticipate just yet. And if you try to start figuring out, you're going into the mind too much. If you try to post about it on Facebook or whatever too much, that's probably sacral chakra wounding. Okay, if you're trying to gain attention through trying to craft a sense of identity that isn't really what is going to be, you're just wasting time, actually. All right, so just be good with the not knowing. And as you'll see, I can give you a little bit of timely insights to help you. I think it can be difficult when we feel like we're just treading water and flailing around. And Mars is going to be doing this kind of retrograding, not in its friendly places mission until June. It will have times where it's more and less intense. We're in the most intense moments in many ways of this. Even the intensity is going to diminish a little bit soon, and we'll go into what might come up there soon. No, something I just wanted to mention as I've been speaking about the Saturn Venus conjunction is that what's really, really interesting is that the Donald Trump inauguration is happening at that time. And as I say, I think this is like a flip switch astrologically to some things, even though we have a Saturn a Venus conjunction every year. It's just where it's placed is interesting. And I think the USA is going to have a very interesting time. And that's why Donald Trump is the best person in the house to have if you want a kind of interesting time. And a lot of things may be spun on their heads. There's this Joker energy. And this flip switch of him being inaugurated and that happening happens right on these conjunctions that I feel set the scene for where we can find some true purpose and true need for healing over this year. And you may see, I've made some videos that are up on the YouTube. This is what I call the new priestesshood. And it's not done yet. Some people are lining up to it. Some people have already had the conditions to start to understand this energy. But I think that what we have this potentiality for Venus to turn into its shadowy, comfort-seeking, luxury, over goddessy thing. And this is where a lot of new age sort of spirituality loves to be. And a lot of people don't really want to do the work or make the sacrifice. Now, also, there's the martyr syndrome, which doesn't help either. So there's this need to find the balance with Venus and Saturn, and with them sitting in Purvabhadra Padra for this conjunction with this good twin, naughty twin, and this quest to move. Are we going to just be the self-seeking spiritual materialist who's not really spiritual, just in it for personal gains, and that's lower chakra wounding and karma? Or are we going to step into the true celestial initiation? Because next year we're going to have, these conjunctions in the higher nakshatras, which are all about transcendence. And this is like the initiation year of all that shadow spirituality and all of those things. And that's why, on top of this, with Mars being retrograde and this energy floating right, there are going to be people who are angry, who are going to be lashing out of other people. And there's going to be a lot of destabilizing, and some stuff has to be shifted and upgraded. This is why ethics and true training and dedication to humility are very, very important. And we all must strive to do better. And this kind of shadow spirituality that rides through things like plant medicines or neo-tantra, things like that, it's dangerous sometimes. And that needs to go to its full point in the journey. And the celestial opportunities of that playing out this year are really big. So we can have a lot of very angry people pointing fingers. And that's why if you want to self-proclaim yourself something, but you don't have the adequate training, ethical background, you haven't been honoring the natural law around things and the true principles of working in a good way, then the stakes are becoming higher, and the need for regulating our communities from within and communicating well with others and keeping things safe as a community are going to be important. So the self-serving thing needs to get out of the way. So there will be some who fail that test because it's just not their time, either as the celestial bodies are moving in their circuit or this life. We can't have judgment around people who weren't ready, but those of us who want to be creating the conditions for the golden age and to step forth, this is the time to really examine everything we do and to utilize this retrograde energy and to be still, so that you're actually not one of those people that people are trying to attack, that you're actually checking yourself and that you're starting to regulate from within, and then you can ripple that through the community. Okay. So I'm now going to talk very briefly on the sacred calendar and what's going on here. This is the Mayan system. So we're going to be entering the new year with bats, and bats is all about weaving with time. It's cheeky, it's quite performative. Bats is not shy. It's okay, you know, they're like this cheeky monkey picture. It's okay to be out there, out front. So there will be some people who are jumping out, wanting attention. Look at me, look at me, look at me. It's New Year, look at me. Fine. It's not really New Year because it's not astrological New Year. And that's okay. But what I would say is that something that's very important this year is that we are going to have the likelihood of deeper system change. Things that we have been threatened for a while. The conspiracy theorists will all say it's happening now. A lot of these things could start to seed this year. And what I've been noticing is that a lot of people who are striving to create the new have been doing it only from the head and the ego. And we run the risk of the whole new system just being a slightly more future version of everything we've got right now. Because a lot of people who are bringing through some of these things have massive egos. And actually, the true natural law is that we dream and we weave before we do. Okay. And so what I see for the first 4 or 5 months of this year is this importance to weave, to work horizontally, to share ideas, but also to first go into silent space with each other and to go into these dreaming states. And so Dharma Stars is going to be organizing some special dreaming sessions. And so if you feel you would like to be part of that, just message us. And this is the true primordial principle is, you know, it's the feminine principle is this dreaming before you do. And this is another reason we're slowed down, because some of us who do the dreaming, need to go into those liminal states first, because that's how everything starts. This is creation principles. We have to do that first, and then we do. Okay. So the people who are doing, they haven't got the codes right. Okay. And you know, I mean, we're doing some stuff, we're running some courses, we're doing some things, but we're working everything around these dreaming pods as well. And so just be clever, because actually if you dream before you do, you don't have to burn out, you don't have to do so much, because you do everything in the right natural law and time. Okay, so it's very interesting that we have this energy kind of kicking off January, but this is it. The journey is not complete. This inner journey, this ancestral healing journey that some of you are on, we're in Cat then from 11th to the 23rd. And this is Cat, where you see this man carrying something strange on his back. Cat is like a net where you've got all your things in it. And it's a bit like when you haven't cleared your filing drawer or whatever. You have to keep taking out the stuff that's not relevant anymore and get rid. And we have to clear the old burdens from the past. That's what we're really being asked to do at this time. And this has been these months. We're really in this clearing time. And there's stuff that we will keep that will be really useful for the future. And there are things that need to go. And a lot of that is this ancestral patterning, this stuff that's keeping us in this wounded version of ourselves. And this is why we need to examine our rage rather than just point fingers at the wrong people really quickly, and actually look at the legacy of rage that sits. And also that rage is a legitimate enough behavior to have and emotion to hold, but it's about how we channel it and direct it, and not to waste energy right now. Okay. Then we come into Noch. And Noch is quite cerebral wisdom. And here, from the unburdening, we're now in the end of January starting to have the new plan, new ideas to solve problems. So out of this ether, we have this ether and then burden removing. We're then going to come into at least a personal level of understanding. And I'll talk about this later in the Vedic section, but as Mars is going to go into a different nakshatra in its retrograde journey, this time that we've had, which is very muddled and soupy. It's still not in a great place, but there's a little bit more self-reflection possible. So really, this new plan, this is not like the new plan for everybody. It's work with you first. You're going to have better introspection. Right now, I think a lot of us don't really know anything, which is always wonderful. It's just that we're programmed to think there's something wrong. Actually, then the newer synthesis of how we're going to work with things, timelines, our own personal journey, that's going to become clearer. But and how that ties into the larger framework may start to be apparent, but it's not a done deal just yet. Okay, that's all I want to say. In the Dreamspell calendar, we are in dog wave spell right now, and dog is very loyal. Dog is all the dog people I know are very in service, and it's a loving energy. It can tend into codependency and losing sight of boundaries. And boundaries are very important at this time because we need to conserve energy because of the way things are, because of sometimes feeling there's inequality. It's important that we all learn to have good boundaries at this time. So that's being questioned. What I am seeing is sometimes people are being too boundary because they're in self-cherishing. And this is like a pain body response, it's egoic response. So dog people are often just, they want to give to everybody. They give everything away. They're just in service. And they have to learn to tighten up their boundaries. But what's been happening is some people have been being over boundaried because they just want to focus on their own self-serving nature. And maybe a bit of dog medicine will help us to realize we still have to be open-hearted and generous. I think that the energy that has been playing through where people have had boundaries recently is part of it. It is for self-preservation, which is good. But when we go too much into the self-preservation train, we actually lose sight of the spiritual mission. Because we are so self-serving, it's almost like we're navel-gazing, which is, again, why it's interesting that we have this Venus-Saturn journey, because a lot of Venus energy is navel-gazing. It's just all about me. It's just too much looking in at me and what I need and this and that. And so hopefully dog medicine will come and help us to re-examine that, because we need to examine where we're codependent and where we're, a lot of people will say, I can't do this because I've got to do this with this person. And actually they're going into the codependent tendency because they're actually putting something that's really going to diminish their true spiritual mission above the spiritual mission. And that's okay, because this is part of the journey, but it's good to see it for what it is. We then still, in the Dreamspell calendar, we're in the night wave spell, which is really the grandmother's energy, this primordial feminine principle, very liminal state work. And this is the dreaming before the doing. And this is why this is a wonderful time still to be in a more non-conceptual, aspirational place, to dream for the new earth, to dream for your true community, your true sangha, to dream for the right magnetism and resonance with people, okay? The right people who are going to take you into the next chapter, okay? And then echoing what was happening in the traditional Mayan calendar, we have warrior, which is really a conduit for cosmic consciousness, but it moves forward. For me, trauma being overcome is often seen by the warrior. It's about fearlessness. It's about our intelligence. It's about ability to synthesize and channel divine consciousness. So that will be a good thing for us all. We will get this sense at the end of the month of more clarity. And sorry, I'd written a little note to myself, and then in my own little journey, I forgot. I need to check. I think we've moved through all the gap days. There will be some gap days coming, and I might start to name them in the transmissions. And that was a note to self that I forgot about, so please forgive me. Okay, we're going into Vedic now. And as I mentioned, we've got this Saturn Purva Bhadrapada energy, which just has hit. So this good twin, naughty twin, this mythic thing that's sitting in many creation stories around the world. You have this story of twins, good twin, naughty twin. And often they go on a journey. They're not always good and evil, but there's often this sense of a duality, okay, a split of consciousness. And it's like we all have the shadow and we have the light side. And this is the quest for all of us, is how we reconcile those parts to come into our oneness. And of course, in the spiritual quest, we have this idea of what is evil. And of course, everything is just the journey. But anything that's ultimately too self-serving is not higher spiritual principles. And this is very much the teaching that this year is going to be about. How do we start to create a golden age, to create a new earth? Because so many people are actually just in a self-serving, egoic, it's all about me story. And a lot of people haven't maybe done the inner work to bring them forth. We can't have an improvement until we come into a more selfless devotional nature. And I think that this falsity that sits around many, many scenes is going to now come up, okay? Venus comes into Aquarius on the 28th of December. And so we do have this desire for these new communities, this new way of being, that's sparking off. And then we have this meeting of Venus and Saturn. They're sitting mid-month in, they're sitting together in Purva Bhadrapada for a while, but they're at their peak from the 16th to 25th. And as I say, we have then the Donald Trump inauguration and all of these things. And so what's very interesting as well is that Venus is really boxed in with malefics where it's placed in the chart. So it has Saturn and Rahu around it. And yeah, it doesn't have much opportunity to be good Venus. So Venus is being constrained. Venus, and I think we just have to look at our Venus. And I just think, and it's just very interesting. As I say, it's like a flip switch of what's going to happen. What is this propelling us into? What is delusional around this self-serving spiritual mission that so many people are on? And how does that actually augment, if we do the work, to something better? Okay. So it's going to be a very interesting time. I've done a little Kala Chakra. Here's the Dig Chakra and the Kala Chakra. So in Kala Chakra astrology, you have the planets here. So this is Venus here, and this is the West. And what happens is then the Dig Chakra planets, they antidote the excesses of said planet. So in this system, Saturn antidotes Venus. That's why for me this is very interesting. And it was a journey of inquiry led me to find out about this Dig Chakra, Kala Chakra, because I just felt there was something in Venus needing to be antidoted by Saturn. And this is where a lot of people don't want to do the hard work. They don't want to make sacrifices. It's all about me. And things will be taken away from people if they don't do their Saturn work. And what we need right now is a bit of a reality check in a lot of forms of spiritual work, to be more selfless, to do the work. And as I say, we don't want to veer into Saturn the martyr either, because too much of that is tricky. And we could talk about the other planets within that. Saturn can become too rigid. This is why Saturn becomes antidoted by the moon, because we need to be adaptable. We do have needs, things like this. So yeah, this is a very important flip switch. And that from there, these lessons about Purva Bhadrapada start to come thick and fast. And that's why I feel we're already lining up to that. We can already feel some of this. Okay. So it's going to be an interesting time. And yeah, that's why I recommend our Venus Saturn journey, because we're really going to go deep into these codes and how we might spot this and how we might work with it. Finally, I mentioned Mars retrograding into Punavasu. So this is going to be a little bit more gentle than where Mars has been in Pusha. And this starts to take place from the 13th. And this is where there is this deeper possibility of self-inquiry, of introspection, and of at least getting a little bit of a clue. And that's why I wanted to mention this, because I think when people feel like they're floating around and they don't, what am I? Who am I? And there doesn't seem to be an ending to that. I think there's going to be a bit of respite from the 13th. It doesn't mean that the lack of energy that we may feel, all of these things are going, but at least we'll get some more self-insights. And there's a sense of the light. Purnavasu has more light energy than Pusha. And so there is more illumination will take place. And that's what we see as we come into the later part of the month. So it's all, again, lining up, folks. It's always just amazing how the systems are saying the same thing, but in very different ways. So the synthesis, it always does this. Sorry about this. Always goes back to that. Okay, so if any of you have decided this is your time to start to do some ancestral work, we're still in it. And I know that those of you who are on our ancestral course, it's almost like being like we've not been able to talk because we're processing the information, and then we're in this soup where we're realizing, wow, look at this. Is this mine? Is it theirs? And this journey is still underway, as we can see. And so I just really want to let you know that this is a good time. If you haven't started doing ancestral work, that this is, it's optimum right now. That's not going to go away, but there are good times of the year to do this. And we're still in a good time. And it gives me hope because of our course, because, it feels slow, but also perfect. And I think it's because everything is going to start to make more sense from middle January. Because I know how I'm feeling and I'm the teacher. And it feels like a very sacred process and it shouldn't be rushed. And that then the insights and the clearings are going to deepen and intensify. So it's just to let you know, it's still a good time to be doing these bits of clearing. We are still very much in a deep internal process, but application to self-improvement, as we see later in the month, rather than just stagnation or stasis, which we may be feeling right now, these will become more evident soon. There is a lot going on in the ethers. And that's why letting yourself slow down to be in the ethers and to join the Dakini weavers, the Shambhala pioneers, the New Earth visionaries, the grandmother field, to opt in to dreaming and weaving at this time is actually a really intelligent way of working right now, okay? So don't try to verbalize things too much. Don't try to be the clever one. Just be. This is the important thing. Old traumas and residues may indeed be surfacing. You can see the markers here in the timelines. And if you do need some help, as I said, we've got some tools. We've also got several practitioners available. I do feel that a lot of dysregulation and shards of unprocessed stuff are going to be rising to the surface, and that this will continue in the early months. I know that people in the global north, it's always crap. February's crap for people. And it really seems like this is all lining up for that. I will say that in February, we do start to get, I think Jupiter is going direct in early February. So there is some movement where there has been a paralysis of sorts, but you may have identified things that you need to work with to help you to expand into a higher version of yourself. Okay. And of course, these residues help us to abide in duality and in conflict and in othering things. It also makes us soothe, to be a comfort seeker, and it can also bring out the sexual shadow and codependent nature. So just map how much of that is going on right now, and just, it's okay to say, often are aware, if you're mindful of something, you're already 50% of the way there, because when we don't see we're blended with sexual shadow or we're codependent, that is when we're still walking that wound. At least if we have some mindfulness over something, we're on the journey to healing. So I really want to encourage you all to map, oh yeah, this is a bit shadowy. I'm quite stuck because you're being slowed down to see, okay? It's absolutely amazing. You can really see these afflictions. That's why if you're too busy trying to be show off and being out there, you're going to miss this opportunity and you're going to go on the Saturn slow path. All right. So warning there, everybody, use the gold. As I've said earlier, late month, we're going to find it a lot easier to move forward, at least in terms of being not just a blob, but being, okay, I'm getting a little bit of insight now, but don't have too much attachment to this being the complete story, okay? Just because this year is a biggie and there's so much transformation afoot, just take the little, just honor the little reveals that the universe gives you, the perfection of them, and you will be fine. It's okay to not know, and it's okay to just have these little vague ideas, because actually it's just that everybody's template is upgrading. All right, it's very exciting. So just understand as well this balance of comfort with sacrifice that's up, and look at how we may soothe or bypass from true responsibility. It's also interesting because right now we are being slowed down, and it is important to honor self-care, but just look at where you use it as an excuse to at least start to line up some service, some devotional work, okay? Because people are trying to get out of things. And that's also because we don't have the physical energy when we take things away. But what I would say, I had to do this recently. I was starting to feel like, oh my goodness, my energies, and I knew it was coming. So then, just as Mercury went direct, a lot of the timelines, which has started making me feel uncomfortable of where I was going to give too much service for my energies next year, or 2025, as I mean, I got a review on those, and I realized because I've had my own challenge recently with just knowing I have to stay disciplined with certain things, even though I don't feel a passion for them right now. And I've known that this is big girl pants time, and I have to wear my big girl's pants and just keep the discipline. And okay, some days I'll do a lesser sadhana than others, but just fight for it, stick with it, even if it's uncomfortable, because it's quite, it's not the most junior path yet of the thing. But I'm still a junior in it, and I have to really work for it. And it's been tricky. But then what I've realized, and then I've been feeling very allergic to certain things, and I've known I have to stick with this. This is my responsibility. This is my Saturn, and I have to do this. And then I realized that what I had to do was that some of I at one point given myself too much to some of these things. And all I needed to do was say, okay, I can do, instead of doing 2 weeks with you, I can do 10 days. Okay. And suddenly everything was okay. And I mustered back some enthusiasm. So what I've seen a lot of is people being over boundaried and just being like, I can't do that, and I'm stopping the whole thing. And they're actually going to compromise their spiritual growth because they're cutting in a self-serving way, rather than thinking, I'm going to honor this responsibility. And what about I find the happy medium and I say, okay, I can't do all of that, but I can do this. That is where I believe the gold is. Because spiritual path is challenging. It has devotion, dedication, hard work, sometimes doing the things that aren't easy, that we don't want, and to find the time to do those. But often it's called the middle way in Buddhism. It's not about going to the extreme austere martyrdom either, because if it's not working for you, it's not working for you. But often you have to work a little bit at it. This is the problem. The over Venus people just go into the soothing, okay, rather than being like, okay, how would I find the middle way with this, where I can stay honorable? This is the thing, staying honorable, but actually do what I'm being guided really to do, and where I'm finding the compromise. And then you will be able to keep on the good path when things get weird in the coming time, because you will have things like guru or a sangha or practices that you've maintained, okay? It's really, really important, because otherwise people will slip. So, yeah, big times, and we are only in the warm up. So, yeah, so we are tied from moving forward right now in epic proportions, but just honor that. You know, for us in the global north, it's the perfect timing because it's the time when we're supposed to be slow. So do take care of yourselves. Do factor in while things are slow. If you can't do a long work day like you sometimes can, do something meaningful. Do some sadhana, find a new self-healing practice. Pick up, you know, going once a week to a sauna, something that's going to look after you so that then when things start to move fast, you are optimized. Okay. So do look after body, do look after health, do look after diet. Because if you're being slowed down in one department, don't overly indulge yourself in the self cherishing. I'm just here about self care. I need all the self care in the world. But you can have a little bit more than normal if it keeps you on track, but use it as an investment to your service for the future. Okay, so thank you everybody for listening. Do get in touch if we can be in service in any way. And I want to give gratitude to Mark Elmi, my teacher in the sacred Mayan system, to Jose Arguelles, to the Rishis, and to the celestial bodies, and to Ganesha, the patron deity of Jyotish, the science of light. Om Shrim Ganganapataye Namaha.